I mean, Netflix did the dumping. Yes, Meghan, this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate is holding you back.
It just seems to remind me so much of the original Mexit.
Netflix fighting back and saying, well, people just weren't interested.
Is Sarah Ferguson going to write a book?
She would make Harry's book look like the teddy bear's picnic.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive, where it's been a week of high-profile exits. It's Mexit Part 2 as Meghan walks away from Netflix for apparently holding her jam company back. The BBC has deserted the royals by refusing to broadcast the Commonwealth Day service. And is the King looking for a way out of his planned state visit to the US? I'm Matt Wilkinson, Royal Editor of The Sun, and joining me this week is the Daily Beast's European Editor-at-Large, Tom Sykes, and news commentator Samara Gill to discuss all of this and more. Welcome to you both. Now look, we've all been in that situation where you've split up with someone and you've told all your friends and your family that I did the dumping, it wasn't working out, I walked away. We heard this week that, as ever, and Netflix have gone their separate ways. Samara, who did the dumping?
I mean, Netflix did the dumping. That much is obvious. I mean, this is the line she's going for, you know. She wants to protect herself, protect her brand, go her own way. No, not true. And I think this is the beginning of the end for As Ever as a brand. We know how much she relied on Netflix to prop up her endeavors and her jam pursuits. I just don't think it's going to go anywhere after this without their funding and without their support. They're a massive conglomerate, a massive company. Obviously, Ted Sarandos, the CEO, had some, nice pleasantries to say at the end of this breakup, but we know what the executives have said about Meghan behind her back. They don't like her. No one enjoys really working with her from what I can see. And I think that this is sort of the final nail in the coffin for that relationship that they have.
Well, it feels like we've kind of heard this before. Meghan has been working with someone for a major, global institution for a while, and after a bit of time, she gets frustrated and decides that she wants to walk away. I'm talking about the royal family. She walked away from being in the royal family after time. There are similarities here.
Yeah, I think what's sort of fascinating about this whole story is the way that everybody pre-announces in their circle, seems to pre-announce everything in a tremendous hurry to say that everything's a big success and everything's perfect. It seems so obvious watching from the outside, or from anyone looking at the outside, that parting company with Netflix is not a great thing for your brand.
It's like a 362 billion worldwide company. Yeah.
Right. So it therefore stands to reason that it would be better to be partnered with them than not be partnered with them. And I think what's so exhausting about the whole narrative that sometimes comes out of their side is that everything is pitched as a win. So this is all pitched as, we're taking back control, Netflix were rubbish, they were holding us back, blah, 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 blah. And then actually, very interestingly, yesterday, we started to see the first signs of Netflix fighting back and saying, well, people just weren't interested in the brand. And we lost interest in being partnered with a brand that people weren't interested in. And look, the bottom line is that fundamentally it's a really good idea, right? To have a TV show with all these brands, then you sell the brands through the thing and it becomes this virtuous circle. But the reality is the TV show didn't work. So I think after the TV show didn't work, why would Netflix particularly be interested in continuing that partnership? They are ultimately a streaming company.
So the writing was on the wall once everyone stopped watching With Love, Meghan. Netflix don't normally sell things like flour sprinkles and jam, so it was kind of, without the show, what's the point of that?
Well, they were meant to have this rollout in some of the shopping centres where they had stores, like bricks and mortar stores, where they were going to sell As Ever. I don't believe that ever happened, which could also signal just how they didn't really want to be associated with the As Ever brand. And you're right, as Tom said, it didn't even make the top 10, let alone really barely the top 100, that Christmas special. So I think that really did signify just how badly that series was doing and how another season, another massive investment with hundreds of staff, lots of resources, just wasn't going to pay off for Netflix. And, you know, we're talking about a company that is willing to throw many different bits at the wall just to see if they stick. This is an open company who, you know, hasn't made a profit in many years. They don't really care about that. They're happy to invest in people. But Harry and Meghan just never delivered for them. That's the truth, apart from that one documentary about the royal family.
What do you think, Tom? Samara's just pointed out there that they had the one big success with the 6-part documentary. You know, that's probably why they bought them. Let's be honest. That's probably why they got them in. The With Love Meghan hasn't worked out. As ever, hasn't worked out. We're told about a first look deal. Not much as not. We're told things are in a pipeline, but nothing really. Meet me at the lake. We're still waiting for that. Is post-royal life, you know, looking far more difficult now for Harry and Meghan?
So, in the normal Hollywood structures, it could often take 5 or 10 years for a film from the beginning to the end to come out. Netflix doesn't do it that way. They do stuff really fast. They commission it, it's made, it comes out. So the fact that both Meet Me at the Lake and The Wedding Date have been stuck in production hell, Meet Me at the Lake for 3 years now, that's basically, that film isn't happening. Like, Netflix would not wait 3, 4, 5 years between making a film and it coming out. And the reality is that it's really, really hard to make a hit TV series. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to be a television producer.
Yeah.
It's a great point. We've even seen this with the Obamas as well, even though, you know, they're much more talented than Harry and Meghan. But even they tried to be TV movie producers and weren't quite able to get that off the ground. I think all these Hollywood stars see others do it and produce really valuable shows and content and say, oh, that's easy. And the sort of reality is that Meghan was just an actress and Harry's was just sort of a spare royal, and it's very difficult to create successful projects. And I think that dawn is sort of it's on them now.
And I think the other thing, Matt, is that there are persistent rumours that Meghan has always looked for a bigger role in these projects, and specifically at The Wedding Date, that she was trying to get involved in some kind of directorial role. Well, I mean, frankly, you know, why are you going to risk that? Why are you going to take that kind of risk? So, and I think that I do understand their argument, right? Which is their argument. Harry and Meghan's argument is, look, we want to sell loads of product, and we, you know, working with a big company has made it really difficult. Every time we want to send an email or do a this or a that, we have to get approval from them, and we're not nimble enough, and blah, 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 blah. And I think that ultimately, like, my personal view in these kinds of things is, okay, fine, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and let's see, right? Time will tell. If in the summer you're shipping loads and loads of products all over the world, I will take my hat and I will eat it, you know?
Well, they said that, you know, I think the exact quote was that...
With some lovely jammy sauce.
With some flour sprinkles on top of that.
Loose fruit spread.
It's
global domination.
$1.8 million worth of flour sprinkles in stock. I mean, that is a heavy investment in flour sprinkles. But I mean, that is a lot of your net worth tied up in dried, inedible bits of dried flour.
Their argument is, and we probably don't know whether this is true or not, really, is that they were struggling to get the products out, and they were struggling to get enough products, and that Netflix, this huge company, was holding them back. I think the quote was, been held back by a more cautious Netflix team. So you're right, in 6 months' time or a year, if suddenly there's stores and they're on sale in Australia and New Zealand and Canada and the UK, it might be different. But do we believe that? I mean, Meghan says it's a good time to have complete control, has been held back by the more cautious Netflix team, whereas Netflix say, it was always intended Meghan will continue growing the brand and take it into its next chapter independently. So they claim that she was always going to leave after a year.
Well, I think that, and to be honest, all the rest of the various bits of the statement, you could just about go, okay, well, it seems a bit odd, but maybe. But the idea that somebody would make a plan to partner with somebody for a year, invest loads of time and money and loads of staff into it, and the whole plan was always going to be that at the end of the year you'd part company and never have anything to do with each other again. It's just so clearly nonsense that it's that particular bit. I think all the rest of it, you could say, well, it's very unlikely, But I suppose in some kind of mad world, they might think that they're better off doing it on their own without the backing of a giant international behemoth. But the idea that Netflix planned to separate, don't you think, is kind of just ridiculous?
Yes, Meghan, this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate is holding you back from all your success and from you becoming a multi-billionaire. You're right. It's a weird line to take and to pursue, but I just don't believe it. And I think that she thinks that we'll fall for this. I think we don't have such short memory. I can remember her making that video in her orchard saying, Netflix has rescued us, because it was obviously meant to be American Montecito Orchard or whatever that original brand name was. And she goes, but Netflix are going to partner with us and it's going to be a big deal and it's going to be massive. And so that was only about 2 years ago. So I think I remember that Netflix saved you, Meghan, and now you're claiming they're holding you back. Doesn't make any sense.
Is it recollections may vary again? Is it all over again? It just seems to remind me so much of the original Megxit. You know, back in 2020, it was like, no, you were holding us back. We wanted to go and do all these exciting things, and you were stopping us. We had to go royal engagements. We want to go and star in TV shows and do something, and do etc. So it just feels so familiar. Anyway, we did see, talking of familiarity, we did see Meghan with a photo and her daughter a little bit on a beach for International Women's Day, Samara. There's been a lot of royals have been putting pictures out for International Women's Day. How did this picture sit with you?
I mean, it was okay. It seemed performative, in my opinion. I mean, at least she refrained from calling, Harry a fox.
Well, we had a new name.
Well, that was the other one. Yeah, we had a new name.
He's got a new name. So he's been called a fox in the past.
Yeah.
H, as we know. He's now called Papa Sussex. This is the caption.
Okay, so I'm going to get into this a little bit because I think this is fully mental. Okay. So, this is a thing, right? And I was trying to put my finger on why it's so weird. And one of my commenters in my Substack, because I have a Substack and a brilliant community of people who communicate back and forth with me. And I was like, why is it so weird? And one of them said to me, the reason it's weird is because when you do this, it's with a grandparent, right? You go, Granny Sykes or Grandpa Wilkinson or Granny Gill, because they have loads of different surnames, right? You can't, you don't need to delineate that you're the Sykes father in the relationship. Do you know what I mean? You can only be that. So I think what is actually going on, I think, is that they are very much trying to cement in the public mind the idea that they are Sussex. Yeah. And this is the royal dukedom and this is their name. Now, it's not actually their name. Their surname is, we think, Mountbatten-Windsor.
Well, they don't want to be Mountbatten-Windsor these days, do they really?
It's not ideal. It's not ideal. Now, they could change their name by deed poll. And certainly there's a long tradition of British peers using their dukedom as a kind of informal surname. But this whole thing of Meghan saying to Mindy Can, my name is Sussex now, well, it's not actually. But the more interesting question is, why are they so keen to keep reminding us and emphasising us and trying to bind their image to the whole Sussex name? And I suspect it's an insurance policy in case things change down the line.
Well, we were always told in the past, when we're dealing with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, we were always talking about, they can never take away the York title. It takes so much time, so much effort, parliamentary time. Then just like that, they made a decision. So surely the Sussexes are sitting there in Montecito realising, if we mess up, they could actually take this title away from us.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it is part of a longer term plan because they do need to solidify brand Sussex. It's all they have at this point. And it's very true. We need to look at these subtleties that Meghan sort of puts in her post, because every social media post is intentional and does have some sort of vague strategy behind it. So you're completely right, Tom.
Now, Samara, our viewers know, and we have a lot of viewers from Australia, but our viewers know that you are from Australia.
Yes.
We've learnt this week, Bronte Coy, a friend of the show, she appears quite a lot, had a very good exclusive revealing that Harry and Meghan were going to head down under, I think the first time in 7 or 8 years, since 2018. You must have spoken to your friends, family and work colleagues back home in Australia. Are they already hanging out the bunting, waiting for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's arrival?
The answer is no. I mean, the people that I'm speaking to, and I'm also I'm ingesting a lot of Australian media as well to see what their reaction is, because that always gives you a sort of a good reference point. But even the very liberal Australian media that I've been sort of listening to, podcasts, etc., are not thrilled about this. They're not. I think I mean, when they came over the first time, I was still living in Australia, and it was Meghan and Harry mania. I mean, people were just going absolutely mad for them. I think it was a really, really successful visit, actually. But the tables have turned. I think we take a much more British view because we're still part of the Commonwealth and we have that common thread. Whereas I think what Meghan and Harry are probably confused about is that we're this more American sort of, we've got a more American attitude towards them, and that's not true. Australians are very cynical people. We don't revel in the royal family. We don't see them, the celebrity, as much as Americans do. And I think that there might be boos. There might be boos when they do some public events. I'm just going to warn you guys right now.
We'll get on some of the events that we've learned that they're planning in a minute, Tom. But if you remember when they went 2018, I think it was, afterwards, I think they've spoken about it. And also in Spare, Harry and Meghan seemed to claim that their visit to Australia was so successful that the rest of the royal family looked at them and thought, oh, they're a bit of a threat. You know, that they've stolen our thunder. It's quite of a risk for them to go back to Australia when we've got that still playing out in our minds.
Yeah, and of course there were shades of Princess Diana, who of course famously claimed in the Andrew Morton tapes that Charles became jealous of her on their trip to Australia as well. So I think there was a very conscious echo of that narrative in this narrative, and trying to draw these parallels between Meghan and Diana as these kind of outsiders who are so popular that the royal family literally doesn't know what to do with them. I mean, it is true that they did get an amazing reception. They announced that Archie, that Meghan was pregnant on that tour. I think the point about the celebrity is really interesting, and the difference between American conceptions of celebrity. And I wonder, because I always feel like in the UK, I feel like we're more aware of the royals as this big or non-homogenous group, but we very much think of them as a group. And I sort of think that in America, they much more, I do a lot of my work for the Daily Beast, they much more tend to analyse celebrities in isolation, as Harry or Meghan or William, rather than a big group. And I wonder whether in Australia, actually they still feel more like the whole royal story is still really, and the way that they, the acrimonious exit from the royal family and the comments that they made about the royals, etc., etc. Whereas in America, they're sort of able to just be Meghan, or they're able to just be Harry.
We discussed this last week with their Jordan trip. Were people going out to see the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or were they going out to see a couple that they'd seen on a Netflix documentary, on a cookery show?
It's a very aggressive tactic from the Sussex side, I have to say, going to Australia. I agree with you. I mean, it's pseudo-royal, as everyone's been saying, but this obviously is tarnishing the Queen's last wishes, which was to not have these gig economy royals where they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and they're basically just trampling all over that wish and saying, no, we're going to do it anyway. I mean, Australia is the cornerstone of the Commonwealth, in my opinion, and the fact that they would go there without any sort of royal permissions is absolutely astounding. And some of Meghan's engagements, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Well, let's talk about this. This is she's going to attend, you probably know in more detail than me, but she's going to attend a £1,400 per person girls' weekend gala dinner.
Yeah, that's a bit of a fall from grace, isn't it?
So what happens here? You pay to meet Meghan, or have a wellness talk with Meghan, have photos of Meghan? What's happening?
Well, it looks, from what I can gather, and it was announced on Jackie O's podcast, who's obviously this currently in a bit of a news storm. Jackie...
She's infamously extremely sort of anti-feminist. And it's a very weird thing that Meghan, who's agreed to go on her podcast when she goes there. I mean, Jackie O made a whole career basically trashing women with her co-host on a radio show. She's very infamous character.
And now haven't they had a massive fallout?
They have, but it's just a very weird decision for I love women and I'm going to stand up for them, Meghan of Sussex. So, anyway.
And Jackie has this podcast with another Australian broadcaster, and they're having a wellness girls' weekend. And Meghan presumably is going to speak, but for the VIP ticket. Meghan will come and take a photo of a table photo. So I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I suppose you all huddle around the table. yeah.
Do you come to her? Does she just sit there like this?
Maybe a queue? No, I don't know.
Mad. It is mad. Selling photographs.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, who would have thought, to be totally honest, 6 years ago when they left the royal family, they had a pretty good deck of cards, to be honest. They could have done a whole range of different things. They could have gone and had amazing careers as philanthropists or activists in whatever field they wanted, really, if they just managed to keep the royal family on side. And to be fair, if the royal family themselves had behaved a bit more better towards that, everybody, I think, could have behaved better around the whole thing. But however you want to look at it, a fall from grace. I mean, my goodness, you 6 years later, those cards have been played pretty badly if you're selling photographs of yourselves at the Coogee Beach Hotel.
But it's not what they want to do, because remember Valentine Lowe wrote in his book that during the tour in 2018, Meghan was allegedly said to an aide, "I can't believe we're not getting paid for this." They were on a royal tour representing, the royal family, and as you point out, in a Commonwealth country where the king, the late Queen was, head of state there, and she said we should get paid for this. Now they're going to Australia, and she is getting paid for it. That's what she wanted, no?
Yeah, but it shows her ineptitude of what being a royal is and what royal life is about. And you could go into this for hours, but the American British divide, not to say one is better than the other, it's just a different attitude towards celebrity. But that's something that I just can't fathom a royal even doing. This sort of girls' weekend. The tickets they're expensive, but they're not that expensive to be spending time with Meghan. And it shows you that the brand is in a massive crisis. It's in a big crisis. You can see that they are trying to pivot away from Jam. In my opinion, they're trying to pivot away from TV shows and into something that is sort of like a fake royal footing. But if that's how they're going to brand themselves and that's how accessible they're going to be, I don't know what's going to come from that and how it's going to go from there.
King Charles is in a bit of a diplomatic pickle this week. Will he or won't he go to see Donald Trump's state visit in the US? It's all been playing out because everything's been happening in Iran. There's been some toing and froing between Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. There was a phone call, we believe, at the weekend where Starmer did speak to Trump and raised the issue of a state visit. It hasn't been announced. So when we speak to the palace and speak to Number 10, they always say, well, we can't postpone a state visit because we haven't actually announced one. But it's an open secret that it's planned. The King's in a bit of trouble here because it's up to the government and Trump to decide whether to go ahead. What do you think?
My view is that it will go ahead. I think that it would be diplomatic nuclear war to say that he wasn't going to go. But I suppose having it in reserve that he might not go is maybe quite a handy thing for the government to have up their sleeve. I don't think they'd explicitly threaten it. And I think that might be why you're seeing some, it's not completely atypical for it not to be announced yet, but you'd expect arrangements to start being made, particularly for media and that kind of thing. So my view is that he will go, but I don't expect to see an announcement imminently.
There's a YouGov poll, Samara, that says 46% of people say cancel the unannounced visit, and 36% said go ahead.
He should go. He really should. I mean, he spoke in his Commonwealth statement about the fractured world. If he cares about the fractured world, then he should put his money where his mouth is and actually go over there and repair the special relationship, which is in absolute tatters at the moment. For those listening from other countries, our Prime Minister and Trump are kind of in their own war at the moment between them, and they're not getting along. So I think the King is the last saving hope for what's going on. And when you look at the first time that Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, met Trump, the first thing he did was whack out an invitation from the King to say, here, please, respect us. I know I've said bad things about you in the past, but here's the King. I mean, we know Trump absolutely adores the royal family. So I think that this is the right time and the right use of the King. This is what he's here for. He's here to amend our relationships.
I think that's totally the right answer. That's his job.
Yes.
That's the King's job. But is it Keir Starmer's job to use the King to to get his own way? Is Starmer putting the King into a difficult situation? But you're right. It is Charles's job to go there and represent the UK if the government tell him to do it and Trump wants him to go.
Totally, and I think Starmer should instruct him. I think that's that's totally above board.
What I'm looking forward to, Tom, American viewers probably, they see this all the time. We see it occasionally on our news where he does the spray, where I'm led to believe that's where in the Oval Office, where Trump will sit down with another leader. We saw him with Zelensky. We saw him, he pointed out there with Starmer, with the German Chancellor just last week. Imagine if we were there at the state visit and you have Donald Trump and King Charles with all the media in the front firing off questions.
It would be wild. It would be absolutely wild. I sort of think that Charles could hold his own, actually. I think he could handle it. I think he's probably I think he'd be up for it. I think they should bring him in.
He did it with Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabian king, so I think why not? Yeah. You should go for. I would pay to see that. I know it'd be a good day for you, media-wise.
Exactly. I'd be very nervous about what I'll wear a suit anyway.
All right.
Definitely come to the Oval Office in a suit with the Zelensky.
Don't turn up in your T-shirt.
But let's stick with the Commonwealth. Australia member of the Commonwealth, because Commonwealth Day. I was lucky enough to go to Westminster Abbey. I actually quite enjoy the Commonwealth Day ceremony. The first job I ever went to was Harry and Meghan's last ever Commonwealth Day in 2020. That was the first one that I went to, but it felt a little bit stripped down, felt a little bit pared down. There wasn't as many royals, or didn't feel there were as many royals as usual, and it wasn't screened on BBC national broadcaster. Potentially the Commonwealth could become irrelevant if it's being ignored.
Could I ask you, Matt, were there many people outside?
There were some protesters outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Many fans?
There always are.
Or just the protesters?
Fans-wise, there was quite a few tourists.
Yeah.
But there's so many barriers there. You are held quite a long way, because it's not just Catherine, William, the King and Queen, Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, Princess Anne, Tim Lawrence. There's loads of representative leaders, high commissioners, ambassadors from all the 56 Commonwealth nations that come and attend. And and celebrate, and there's speeches and talks about the Commonwealth. So there is a large area in the front for them to come.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was very sad that it wasn't televised by the BBC. I think that if ever the BBC anyone was going to watch the Commonwealth service, it would have been this year. I think it's an extraordinary decision from this corporation that is supposed to be representing the British people, and doing stuff that is of interest to them that maybe other people wouldn't. Because I would have thought that to study how that group came together, how they interacted with each other, how they were with each other, would have been so interesting this year for people to see on their television screens, to study and to look at, because of the disaster that they've been through with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor since the beginning of the year. So, and I just fundamentally, I felt that it is quite sad that the Commonwealth was the Queen's thing, right, wasn't it? The Queen was passionate about the Commonwealth, and there'd always been voices saying, oh, well, what is the Commonwealth? Is it really a thing? So there's always been a slightly nebulous, strange thing, the Commonwealth, and I feel it was very much held together by the force of Queen Elizabeth's personality and her sort of iron discipline that everybody had to show up at Commonwealth Day. Like, you had to show up. It was completely non-negotiable because it was so important to her. And now, what is it, kind of 4 or 5 of them wandering around looking a bit lost in, Westminster Abbey. I don't know. I thought it was a diminished spectacle.
I think it's a really good point. I mean, is it diminished to you? I'd say from Australia. I keep referring to you as from Australia, but I mean, does it still matter?
Australian. No, I totally agree. I think it was something the Queen worked for years on. There were so many sort of triumphs that she had during her leadership to do with the Commonwealth and to keep that bond so strong. But I think it has fallen to the wayside since her death, and it's sad. And also the slight lack of sort of people attending to support, as you said, Matt, is interesting, because it will also show the potential dent that the recent scandals that the royal family has been embroiled in may have on the popularity of the royal family. Is this the beginning of something that will continue to see diminishing? Will we continue to see a diminishing support? Is that going to be jaded, for the next 10 years? Is it going to be an issue? I don't know. I mean, I think it's a relevant question to say, is this the point where we start to see a lack of support for the royal family?
Yeah, might be emblematic. It really might be at the moment. I mean, the King did give a written speech, a written address. The monarch or the head of the Commonwealth will always give a talk, and he talked about the fragmented world and the power of the Commonwealth. But I don't really think that really got through to everybody. I don't really think, it does worry me that it is going to come, an irrelevant day, and then what does that mean for the rest of the Commonwealth? But we shall see. Tom, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is Sarah Ferguson going to write a book?
Well, it's actually London Book Fair this week, so everybody's in London buying and selling books. Agents are going around. I mean, the rumours that she is trying to sell a book are everywhere. Everyone's talking about it, but no one's saying. A lot of publishers have been burned, I have to say. I spoke to at least one publisher who's been burnt in the past. Promised a book by Sarah, sent in advance, and
she's done
tumbleweed.
books before. She's done books before, but they've often been about, they've often been a little bit soft. Yeah. And I was led to believe, maybe last year before all this all kicked off, that she wanted to talk, if she was to write a book, it wasn't going to be a tell-all, it was going to be about, just maybe like a Meghan-esque kind of book where talking about, living your best life and stuff like that. If she was to write a book, her credibility is so low, would anyone really want to buy it? Would they want to trust it? Would they believe anything that she says in it?
Well, there's two arguments here. One is that, no, she couldn't possibly do it, because to do so, she'd either have to say, I knew nothing about anything that was going on and no publisher's going to want to publish it because it wouldn't have any credibility. Or else she goes completely nuclear and says, yeah, I know absolutely everything. I want my $20 million like Harry got. You've all betrayed me. You've all thrown me on the rubbish heap. And does it in a way that tries not to open her up to legal jeopardy. I would be very cautious for the royal family about ruling it out. That's all I'm going to say. I think that it could certainly happen, and maybe it happens more in the format of an interview with Oprah or another TV channel. I mean, maybe not Oprah on this occasion, but a big TV interview paired with the book. People would want to watch it. It would be fascinating. Don't forget, Sarah Ferguson has had a ringside seat at the biggest scandals of the royal family. She would make Harry's book look like the teddy bear's picnic if she decided to tell the stories of what she has seen. She is Diana's third or fourth cousin. Like, they go back before they were married. She was absolutely Diana's confidant in all of the years of the divorce, the Battle of the Waleses, the children, Diana's death. I mean, she has seen it all, Matt. And if she wanted to lift the lid, I tell you, I think she'd get more than Harry. But I think it would be, it wouldn't be burning bridges, it would be blowing them up.
Well, she's, the royal family have really no control over Sarah because, taking away the York title, kicked her out of Royal Lodge. She's not a working royal. She's not married to anyone in the royal family. She can do whatever she wants. They've lost control of her, surely.
I mean, she's money hungry. She knows where the bodies are buried, and she really, really does have an axe to grind in some sort of way, because she has been pretty shortchanged by the royal family out of this whole situation. She's pretty disgusting as an individual, but she'll have a lot to tell. I think Tom's completely right, and I do think it's the latter option that you put forward, where she's going to need something out of this. I mean, at least Andrew's been put up by the royal family somewhere to live. She got totally kicked out of the Royal Lodge and is effectively homeless at the moment. So, I mean, of course, she's probably living with one of her well-to-do daughters or something like that, being put up by them. And we know that she's got no shortage of money with her extravagant stays in Swiss health retreats for her mental health and all that. But I think Fergie is a live wire, and we haven't heard the last from her. She's got a lot to tell.
And I think the daughters is a really interesting point, because I think the last bit of leverage was that the daughters were allowed to stay part of the royal family.
It's true.
Well, if now the daughters are being kicked out by William, which we're seeing, they're now not allowed to appear at anything with the royal family. They've been told they're not going to Ascot. They're not. We've seen Charles desperately try to protect those daughters. We saw in the briefing notes that came out after Andrew was stripped of his rights, they're completely unaffected by anything that's happened. There they are at Christmas, William with a face like thunder, refusing to speak to them or be around them. And now, suddenly, we're being told they're not appearing at any royal events ever again, or alongside any member of the royal family ever again. to me, that feels like the last bit of leverage they had over Sarah.
I mean, obviously, Beatrice and Eugenie have not been implicated in the Epstein files or anything like that, or accused of doing anything wrong. We'll just need to point that out. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor denies all wrongdoing, although he hasn't actually given a statement since the Epstein files came out, but the latest we hear from him is that he denies all these allegations. But with Sarah Ferguson, I mean, she's not only got a story to tell, she's got questions to answer. And I think maybe she needs to, answer some of these questions before we start hearing her story. This show today has been quite stressful. There's been a lot going on, I think. It's been, you know what I mean? There's been some big issues that we've spoken about here, I think. Anyway, I'm stressed here. Could we talk about something a little bit more fun, just to finish off? Could we talk about Prince William and his phone call? Did you find it funny? I found it funny. He was helping out at a pasty company down in Cornwall, and he got stuck in, picked up the phone, and somebody ordered a bunch of pasties, and he mistook her name, Josie, for Juicy. Look, did you not see this?
I did. I saw it on your socials.
I genuinely think, look, in all this trouble that we're talking about here, the stripped down monarchy at the Commonwealth, everything that Harry and Meghan are bringing, Sarah Ferguson bringing all this carnage. Sometimes it is just nice to see the royals kind of having a bit of fun, warming a community, bringing a bit of light and enjoyment to communities. Because he went to, he's the Duke of Cornwall. He went down there to speak to communities that have been affected by recent flood, a recent storm in January and stuff like that. And I think these communities will really welcome his arrival down there. Can I finish on that little bit of light?
I think you can, Matt, and I think it's lovely, and I think this is traditionally what the royal family did. And I think that one of the things that people are a bit nervous, if I may say, about William and Catherine is that they seem to be suggesting that they'll be doing less of this and that they're only going to be doing one trip every 2 weeks, which in comparison to the Queen, who was doing several of these trips every week, I think it is a very important part of their job. And I don't want to sound in any way patronising or anything like that, but I think getting out to the regions, getting out to the different parts. He is the Prince of Wales, for God's sake. He should be doing stuff in Wales on a regular basis. And frankly, it's not enough just to do stuff on Instagram and post stuff on Instagram. As you say, get down there, pick up the phone at the pasty company, have a laugh with somebody, make their day, make their week. That's a story for the whole community to say, oh yeah, and he called her.
I'm with you on the videos, but I feel they are making a major effort. I was in Wales the other day, and that was a huge day. It didn't seem to get much coverage, but honestly, I was there, and it was insane. And I think might be a few more this week we can't talk about, but they are really. I think they've taken all that on board. I'm kind of tired of the Instagram videos and stuff like that. I want to see them out in the communities. But
I don't think we should shred them for, they've got a young family that they need to be taking care of, and we know that they're very involved. And I think, yes, the Queen, Philip was always out there doing duties. They were workaholics, but who suffered as a result? I mean, we're seeing some issues with their children now in the press. And I think maybe, Catherine is trying to focus on raising the next generation of leaders properly without some childhood problems that we're seeing the results of today. So I'd actually support them focusing on that, and also potentially hiding away out of the press publicity and the horribleness of what is going on right now, and just sort of keeping their peace until they then have to be thrust into the limelight when unfortunately the king has to step aside.
Because they're going to be incredibly busy in the future.
Yes.
Absolutely, so they need to look after their family right now. I agree with both of you. Is that all right? Is that acceptable? I'd like to hear what our viewers think. They can leave comments. I'd like to see what they think on the argument. Right, we've just got time for our quick fire questions. Question number 1. Following William's trip to a pasty shop, which royal would you like to cook for you?
Go on, Tom.
I think I'd want Harry's roast chicken, just because I like roast chicken.
Look what it did to Meghan, though. Do you want that roast chicken?
Meghan cooked the chicken. I can't remember who cooked the chicken.
I'm going to get ripped into for this, but I mean, Meghan, I would like to experience. I'd like to experience the cooking and enjoy. I think that lemon pasta I have made, the recipe that she put forward, was actually really good.
I actually genuinely totally would. Imagine if there was a pop-up restaurant somewhere where Meghan was the chef. All right, there's an idea.
Hell yeah.
Question number 2. If Fergie was to release a tell-all book, what should it be called? That's a tricky one.
Oh, Revenge of the Redhead.
Ooh.
Redhead Revenge.
I do. Regrets, ... I have a few.
Oh, like it.
Both good ideas.
Hey.
And it's book week this week, so they might be listening. They could come up with some of the agents could be hearing that. And thirdly, what excuse should the King give to get out of the state visit to the US?
I'd say, I don't want to see my son. I'm not interested in seeing my son. I want to avoid. I need a proximity of a country between us, and we're not on good terms right now. Trump will understand that. He doesn't like Harry and Meghan.
I completely forgot to talk about the fact that there are calls for the King to not go to the state visit. I mean, it's not been announced. It's not been formally announced, but yeah, we're going to have to see where that plans out anyway. Good. All right, thanks, guys. I've really enjoyed the show. Thanks for coming on, Tom. Your first time as well, so yeah, definitely welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Right, that's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks to my guests, Tom and Samara, and thank you, as always, for watching. Remember to subscribe to us here on the Royal Exclusive YouTube channel for the latest royal news, and we'll see you next week.